need the most help in aggressive growth.
Makes sense out of.
Yeah, so you got the whole meeting for chat. That's even better.
Ransom shield.
And, you know,
Hey, Jeff, good morning.
good morning. How are you?
Man, we are just so excited and revving up to be doing our meetup next week in Dallas. I can't wait to see you.
I can't believe it's coming up so fast, and it is. My goodness, it's like today's what, May 19th, and this month is just going real fast. And yes, our meetup is May 29th in Dallas, and it's going to be a great one. And you know, it's going to be an opportunity for people to catch up with the vCon revolution and start to understand how powerful, you know, when you're playing with the robot food for AI and understand the context of virtualized conversations, how it literally is changing how businesses communicate both internally and externally. It's a big thing, and I'm looking forward to joining you in Dallas and co-hosting the meetup.
Well, that's what is going to make a lot of sense for everybody, guys. When you do the meetup, you're actually going to be able to spend time with Jeff. You're going to be able to spend time with others who are on the verge of this next evolution of what everyone's been already doing, is looking at AI from a conversational point. And that's a perfect segue, Jeff, into what we're going to be talking about today, because many of you in your industries already are trying to understand how to elevate to that next version of AI. But vCon AI is what I consider that next step of how we manage our conversations, and privacy and the ethics behind it, you know, is a hot topic, because a lot of people forget that you do have to have that as part of this next evolution of technology. But Jeff, a lot of people don't think that way. A lot of people are just kind of skirting around that topic.
Well, these days, compliance, which may be boring and left to the back office, is front and center, particularly for companies who don't want to have to worry about being fined millions and millions of dollars. You know, Apple, look at every large company. Google just settled got a huge fine in the state of Texas. And Apple, it's not far behind it in certain places and in the EU. I mean, it turns out that consent and use of customer data should not be assumed by business, that there are ethics involved in terms of how information can be used, should be used, and you know, and being able to not assume. You know, there was an old Odd Couple. I remember my father taught me that, you know, what happens when you assume, and he stole it right out of the an Odd Couple sketch from an episode years ago. Because if you just put a slash, when you assume, you make an asset of you and me. Literally, put the slashes, and that's what happens when companies assume that they can use your data for their own benefit. And these assumptions are costly. Billions of dollars will cost some companies. Why? You know, because there are rules and protections, and the idea of a customer having the right to their information, and the right to set and maintain their AI preferences in terms of, okay, you have consent to this recording to understand I said yes, please investigate my billing reference. Yes, please use my voice to verify that I should make the change to my flight. No, you should not. I'm not allowing you to use my voice or my reaction to my voice to train your AI in terms of how to handle customers. You know, I am setting everyone has the right to set their preferences, and in terms of how data is going to be used. You know, consent is a big thing, but it's not like a general purpose. Now you have my consent to send me emails, so please, by inference, you now can take my personal data and share it with the world. That's not what I said yes to. And defining that delineation of how information's used is a real big issue. And if you happen to be practicing AI ethics, if you are representing the rights, human rights, don't worry, one day soon there'll be people advocating for agentic AI rights, the rights of the bots, and the rights for those bots coming alive, how they should be seen. At least I've seen that in sci-fi movies. But the reality is that today, you know, big data, which was a big term because no one else really could explain how to handle information. So there was this column called Big Data. You know, when big data meets AI, lots of implications. And so if you happen to be a company handling compliance in telecom, dealing with all sorts of filing issues on a state level and federal level, well, you know, how you access and touch customer information goes way beyond just marketing campaigns, goes way beyond how you have those relationships. And And managing consent and consent with purpose is a big part of this AI revolution. And one of the very subtle things that virtualized conversations help companies empower and take control of. There are two protocols coming out of the ITF. Actually, there are three. And for the very time on one of our conversations, I'm going to mention the third one. So you've heard me talk about vCons and virtualized conversations. I made reference to SCIT, which is the ITT, that stands for Supply Chain Integrity, Transparency, and Trust. And when you bring vCons and SCIT together, you create this memory and trust framework, which is very powerful. There's another emerging protocol. Yes, yet another. From the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, and that's called AI Pref. And AI Pref is coming from the perspective of how consumers set their preferences on how AI will be used. And that is part of ethical AI. It's going to be part of how information is going to be used with permission by end users. There's lots of regulatory bodies around the world that are standing up for the rights of the consumer, if you will. The EU was first and foremost very forward with GDPR, and requiring information about, if you're doing business in a certain country, the information has to stay in that country. And they were standing up and saying that these are the rules we must comply with the technology that's available to enforce it. And certain places like the state of California, they're standing up now. And if you happen to be in California, you have lots of digital rights to be well protected. And by the way, we're going to the big state of Texas. Texas is they just went after Google. And you could expect every state to stand up soon and enforce their own version of ethical use of AI as they interpret it. And it's a challenge. It's an emerging area in the sense that ignorance of the law is not an excuse to the law. So if you happen to have a regulatory compliance attorney in hand, now is a good time to consult with them. It may be a good time to find one. But even as a business person, don't assume that if you are in conversations with random people in business, if they don't give you permission to use their likeness or their personal information, that you actually have used. Now, nothing we're talking about here should be considered legal advice, because I'm not an attorney. We don't practice law. We don't practice anything like that. But just from a practical perspective, there's a lot of ethical issues dealing with how AI can be used. And of course, these days in 2025, this is the era of the deep fake. SCIT, that's Supply Chain Integrity, Transparency, and Trust Protocol, that is really good at showing what's real. Similar to how if you go to people used to go to HTTP to go to a website, and then we migrated to HTTPS. Why? Because, well, if it's HTTPS, we can prove that's a real website. Google is running on behalf of the world what's called a transparency server. And HTTPS proves it's a legitimate website. And similarly, with SCIT, we can prove that you have permission. These are legit sites. These are legit uses of my data. And when you're looking to find those people that are doing really bad things, that's not typically ethical use of AI. And what's bad about that is some wonderful breakthroughs. We're living in a time now that it's very possible to take our voices and use them to read bedtime stories to people that we'll never meet. Or if you wrote a book and you're a little tired and you don't want to narrate your own book, you can find your own voice literally and have a narrative recorded, and it sounds pretty authentic. You can also build product. If you happen to want to experiment, you can do a typical, for whatever reason, the software developers these days love creating examples, connecting and simulating pizza parlors. So you can be taking an order for pizza over the internet using one of your AI agents and simulate it and listen to where the person is, listen to their voice, listen to their dialect, and then speak back to them in the same accent that they have, mimicking but with intention, so that if it turns out that you're from Southern New Jersey and they know it, they'll put on a Jersey accent. Or if you have in Oaxaca, Mexico, and they can detect that, they'll speak on the Oaxaca dialect. There's for every language, there are many dialects and many interpretations of dialects, and the language AI models have gone from being interesting to being damn good. And the cost for this, while expensive at some level, is priceless at other levels. And we're living at a time where James Earl Jones, before he passed away, he licensed to Disney his likeness and his voice. So generations from now, his descendants will all benefit from his legacy, because with permission, he gave access to his Darth Vader voice to be used. Ironically, what was really funny for me is people who were not familiar, who didn't watch Verizon commercials in the New York area when Star Wars was very popular in the 90s. I found it very funny that Darth Vader was the official voice for Verizon, but that's another conversation. The dark side, yes, but anyway, that's why in my mind sometimes I have trouble. But that's also why I have the photograph behind me that I took myself, because that seeing the delineation of light from the galactic center of the Milky Way is kind of special, because sometimes we have to go into that darkness to find the light. But James Earl Jones, that was just a character he played, but very distinguished voice, and I wouldn't be surprised to find out that a skit vCon technology in the future will be used by Disney to properly license and authenticate the use of his voice in the future. And if it's not that, it will be a derivative of what that represents. I mean, AI ethics is an issue, but you need to have ethics for it to matter. So people who are bad actors, people who want to do bad things, they're not going to care about this. The best we can do is provide guidance and best practices for people who do want to follow things and who do want to make sure that, if they're a public company and they don't want to be fined for bad things, AI ethics matter very much so. And protecting consumer data. Now, every day we read about more breaches of how consumer information was breached. And even though we have these compliance laws for health information and for this and for that, yet there are leaks. What happens? Well, oh, sorry. Yes, 2 billion records just got leaked out to the world. So, are we wasting our time? I don't think so. We don't want to intentionally do, my intention is to use technology for good and to protect information and to help people's records stay protected as best as possible. And, for people who have lackluster IT security or been hacked for different reasons, that's going to continue. That's an issue to fight. But at the same time, it doesn't mean we shouldn't be ethical with the use of AI. And I'm very excited to know that AI Pref as a working group at the IETF is getting a lot of light shined on it, because as people build applications into the future, allowing consumers, individuals, to set the preferences on how their data is used will become more and more critical. Right now, it's probably below the surface for most people. We're not thinking about it. But one day, they'll all wake up and they'll say, what is going on here? How come my voice was just used in a commercial endorsing your product? I didn't give you permission to use my voice, but they recorded it. And so, it's in a recording. Okay, let's take that voice and let's say that, make them say this. How, think about what happens when you're on a call center call. I'm picking on Delta again, because Delta.
Everybody uses them. Everybody uses them.
But it's like, this call is being recorded for quality assurance purposes. Now, it doesn't say only quality assurance purposes, and it doesn't say hang up the phone if you don't want us to learn from this. If they were to change their recording by saying this call is being used for quality assurance purposes, if you don't want your voice to be used to train our AI model, hang up. They're assuming that if I don't hang up the phone, that it's okay to record me. Now, that might work in certain states where there's a gray area, but in other states where there's clearly demarcations in terms of how consumers give consent, implied or otherwise. And, for the benefit of Delta, there are many states where me staying on the line, you could assume I gave you permission, but
Right.
But that's going to be maybe not in the case all over the place. And it may be, so how, consent with purpose becomes a big thing. It's not just, yes, I said yes to using, use my name, use my face, because I'm a fan of your product or your service. But if you come up with a new product, I may not be a fan of that. And I certainly don't want to blindly endorse everything you do.
Right.
So we need controls. And so what we will see over the next 5 years is as agentic AI and generative AI continues to be pervasive in our business, there will be a clamping down on how consumer information is used, and the rules will be more clearly articulated. I wouldn't be surprised in the future to find out maybe the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, certainly on a state and local level, some people are going to stand up on behalf of the consumer, because it's, for the FTC years ago stood up against bloggers to at least disclose that if all of a sudden somebody's hawking a certain manufacturer's glasses and they're promoting it in every post, they need to disclose, oh, I'm being paid to promote these types of glasses, as opposed to just me saying, oh my God, check out these glasses, so cool, check them out. Oh my God, they're like the best ever. You can wear them upside down, backwards, even like this, I can see. It's like, no, that's not what they want, right? So, but if I told you, every time I post about these glasses, I'm making $322, then maybe Jeff does like these glasses, or maybe he just wants to be paid that money.
Right.
As opposed to me saying, I just went out to an amazing Italian restaurant last night. It was fabulous. I'm going to even mention the name of it and just tell you that that vodka sauce, oh my God, it was so good. And so there was no product other than me referring to it. But, if that restaurant knew who I was, and perhaps I know the owner, I could do something with them, but it's a personal relationship. But when I talk about AI ethics, it's more in a general purpose, that we're entities, we're entry level, maybe we're an entry in someone's database, a spreadsheet, but we're not looked at as people. And I think that we need to focus on how privacy is going to be used. And one of the cool things about vCons is that they were perhaps invented with a specific purpose, be the file format for conversations, which is a big thing. It's also a very disruptive thing, because until vCons happened, there were and are companies today that have their own proprietary file formats, which believe that their file format for a conversation is the way to go. They haven't woken up to the reality that when you have interoperability, yes, that might create competition, but it also elevates the marketplace. It brings in many more people into an ecosystem, and now customers have the ability to do so many more things with their data. So it inherently makes that data much more valuable, because now we could do so many different things, include protect how it's used for purpose. So AI ethics not going away. If you happen to be an attorney or someone who's an expert in ethics and AI, now is 2025 and beyond is going to be a great time to shine. I believe it's going to be an unbounded opportunity to find your stakes in the golden age. And so at Full vCon, which is going to be October 21st to 23rd in Dallas, we're going to be covering it. I actually am announcing today. Today's May 19th. I'm announcing our call for speakers for the event. I'll be spending the next 30 days or so from now to the end of June looking for people who are interested in speaking at our conference. If you don't know what a virtualized conversation is, check it out. You could learn about it from the ITF. You can go to Pulver vCon report, and there's also Doug Greens has a new column, PR, all about vCons. And so, but if you are in the world of virtualized conversations and you'd like to shed some light on the work that you're doing, you're certainly invited to speak at the conference. I'm putting out I do publish the Pulver vCon report at thejeffpulver.substack.com, and on today's post, I just did it right before we went live. I'm formally announcing the event, and VonEvolution.com has a link to the call for speakers. But that's just to say, it's an inclusive opportunity. It's not so exclusive. It's really inclusive. I'm looking to have as many voices as possible from many different places, because as universal as AI is in business, vCons have even bigger purpose. The more we use it, the more we'll appreciate how great it can do, the great things it can do.
Well, again, Jeff, thank you so much. I want to let everybody know that part of the rights of all of us is to be able to look at, how innovation meets that regulation. And Jeff, I think a lot of people in B2B businesses, B2C businesses, and even direct to consumer need to adopt not only this best practice, but more importantly, they need to stay in front of it and ahead of it. And so coming to the meetup, guys, we're going to continue to talk about policy. When you come in October, we're going to have a hackathon before we do the actual vCon 2-day summit. But more importantly, guys, it's really to be able to start having the conversations that really matter about our data in our conversations that we're having with each other, with our customers, and also to be championing what I consider the policymakers on how that should have that conversation be steered. So again, Jeff, thank you. We're going to post the links here for the meetup that's going to happen next week. And we're also going to be posting the link for the October event so that you guys can be a part of that as well. Jeff, we are also going to post up the sign up page for the Jeff Pulver report as well, so that everyone can go back and sign up.
That's wonderful. Like I say every Monday, it's great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about the age, the state of vCons, and next week's gonna be really good. And scheduling note, I believe this will be not Monday, but Tuesday next week for those of you who are tracking this. And most importantly, if you're anywhere near Dallas and join us on the 29th, your questions about vCons will be answered face to face.
Exactly. Again, guys, thanks so much. And Jeff, again, see you soon next week in Dallas. And go ahead and register, guys. After, if you're watching this recording, please register for the Dallas meetup, and we will see you there.
See you there.